Hi everybody, it's Beck here from Rebecca Richards Kinesiology. So today I wanted to do a brief video on the metal element, the season of autumn, and also the corresponding emotion within kinesiology, which is grief. Grief can present in so many different ways and for so many different reasons. It's something that comes up a lot when I'm working with clients, and it can come in ebbs and flows at different times in different people's lives. Certain seasons, certain times, certain memories, certain anniversaries and so on can bring up layers of grief. And then sometimes we can wake and just feel a sense of grief or loss within our body or our heart. And sometimes we're in phases of our life where we are experiencing grief for some what we think are unusual reasons. So there's a couple of things I want to say here. And one is making sure that you make space for your grief. And I'm going to show you also a really simple technique that you can bring into your daily life that is really supportive of releasing grief as well, if it's something that you're experiencing. But I want to just acknowledge that if you are having times in your life where you are noticing that grief is surfacing for you, is to just give yourself permission to be with that feeling. Often what I hear clients say or people say is that I'm feeling this way, I've got some sadness or I'm feeling grief. Oh, but it could be worse. There's worse off people in the world. You know, it's not like A, B, or C is happening to me. It's only this little thing and I'm feeling grief, so I just need to move on from it. What I want to say to you is that when you do that to yourself, that is emotionally bypassing. And it doesn't release anything. Its feelings are held in our body, in our energy body. And the only way that we're able to release those emotions is by acknowledging that's how we're feeling, giving ourselves permission to feel that, and then releasing that, whether that's through exercise, whether that's through talking therapy, talking with a friend, whether that's body therapy, going out in nature, whatever it is for you in how you work with the release of certain pent-up emotions. And I'm going to show you a technique in a moment. So I just wanted to acknowledge that I think it's really important that we don't bypass ourselves when we are feeling grief with, oh, well, it's not as bad as this person. So just, you know, if you notice that yourself doing that, just, you know, curb that tendency to do that in your voice or in your words or in your thoughts, and just give yourself a few moments to feel into what's surfacing for you. So that's one little snippet I just wanted to talk about. Another little snippet I wanted to add into here as well is grief can come up for many different reasons within our lives. We can experience grief in the most obvious, which is the death of someone that we love and that we cherish. It could be a child, it could be a parent, it could be a friend, it could be another family member, it could be our partner, it could be an animal, it could be a pet. But grief can also come up when we are shedding and letting go different stages of our life. I see it a lot with mothers, for example, or primary carers of children, of when their youngest child is heading off to primary school. And all of a sudden they've got this space where they've wanted that extra space and the kids into school, or they may not have, but there becomes this void. And then there's this grief of this time period. Oh, wow, I'm in a different phase of mothering and motherhood, and my children are going to a different phase. And that can bring up grief for some people. On the other end of the scale, it can be when the last child finishes school and they stretch their wings and they're now adults. And that can be a really big time period of grief for some people as well, mothers and fathers or caregivers. Other times of grief can be when we move, when we move from one house to another, or one part of the country to another, or another country to another country, where there is the desire and the want to move, But there is also the grief of what's being left behind. There can be grief around the loss of friendships. There can be grief around relationship breakdowns with family members or partners or friends or colleagues. There can be grief around letting go of a job or a career. There can also be grief attached to different projects that don't come to fruition. So it could be where you've been working really hard at something or a particular business idea, you've been working really hard at that, you've launched that, and it just doesn't take off. And there can be grief around, wow, that's something I've put so much time and energy into and it didn't work. So I just want to acknowledge that there are lots of different layers of grief. And I'm not putting an importance on one grief being worse than another grief. I'm just talking about grief in general. And sometimes it can be all-consuming, held in every single cell of our body, where we think, how are we going to ever move on? Or it can be just little moments of grief where everything can be going really well and that song can come on or a particular smell. And then there's the grief, you can feel the grief welling in the heart. So that's the grief that I'm talking about. It's whether it's all consuming or just slices and moments of grief. Now, this time of year, when we are walking through the season of autumn, which is also known as the metal element within kinesiology and traditional Chinese medicine, often the emotion of grief, it is associated with this season. So what can happen within our body and our energy body and our emotional body is we can hold grief in our meridian system, our energetic system. And as this particular season, we step into this season and we move through this season for the next 3 months, grief can come forward. I often see it in clinic where I'm working on a client and they'll say to me, oh my goodness, Beck, every single year at this time of the year, I get this cough. I just get this cough that's going on. Because let me remind you, is that metal element governs our lungs and our large intestine. Autumn governs metal, which governs our lungs and our large intestine. It also governs our skin and our hair. So if I'm working with a particular client, they say to me, Beck, every year, this time of year in autumn, I develop this cough. It must be allergies, or it must be this, or it must be that. What I'm thinking with my background and my education is grief. I'm thinking there's grief and associated emotions that are being held in the lungs, and the body memory is kicking in seasonally, and the grief is being expressed by the cough, by this physical issue. We can also see that with the bowel, the large intestine. The large intestine is having issues. Often the associated emotion is grief. Skin, I talk about skin as well because skin is the correspondence for metal and autumn. And a lot of people who have eczema or psoriasis, that can come up and be more prevalent in this season as well. And I've had so many clients over the years say, in summer and in spring, my skin's really good. And then the minute we come out of summer and we go into autumn, my skin starts to flare up. Well, for me, as a kinesiologist, what I see that connection to is the emotion of grief and other things as well, but I am underpinning it with this particular emotion and thinking, what's going on? So when I work with my clients, I'm looking at finding, where is it being held in the body? Is it in the skin, the large intestine, or the lungs? And what time period does this connect to? Is this something that the person's experiencing now? Or are we going back in time when they were 7 or when they were 14 or when, 3 years ago, where there was a loss of something, whether it was a job or a person or a situation or a way of life, and that is still being held in the emotional body and is wanting to be released. So I work with my tools to help release that from the body so the person can come into balance, and hopefully on a cellular level the lungs can recover, and the next time they go into this time of the year they're not going to have the body express itself in the illness of a cough. Okay. What I want to talk to you about is if you're noticing that grief is coming up for you, whether that's the loss of someone that you love or the loss of something in the past, a job, a way of life, a situation, or a job, or an idea that you've had, or a miscarriage, a really great acupuncture point that we can work with, which is on the lung meridian, is lung 10. So lung 10 is situated on the hand, and where it is it's just in here. So what I say to my clients is just feel around that whole area, and you will begin to feel a spot that's in there, right on that ridge, and just in that soft point that can be really tender. And we want to do that on both sides. So this is what we call in kinesiology a neuro-emotional reflex point. So, excuse me, I'm a little bit of spit there. I'm getting to it, talking so much. So what we can do, and what I do as a kinesiologist, is I work with and rub and activate that particular acupuncture point for the client, and I talk to them about the emotion. How does that feel? Tell me about it. And as we talk and debrief, and I'm rubbing this point, this is what we call a release point for that emotion. You may find, if you have a little feel on yourself, you may find that one side is actually a lot sorer than the other. And that can mean a whole lot of different things as well, but I won't go into that today just because I don't want to go into too many things. I just want to keep it really simple. For me, my left side is a lot sorer than my right. So you might just want to give that a rub for yourself. Lung 10, and just swapping over and just giving that a good rub. And what can be really nice, or what I like to do for myself, is I will then choose an essential oil. You don't have to do that, but if you really want to add another layer in for yourself of awareness, and I actually intuitively chose an essential oil through just picking one out before I recorded this video, and the essential oil that came up for me is frankincense. So what we can start to do is we can start to work with that acupuncture point, get a little bit of the essential oil. I know that frankincense can be applied neat, which is direct to the skin. I know that because of my training. And you can put a little bit of the frankincense essential oil onto that acupuncture point. And just give that a rub. And just, if you are doing that now while you're listening, I want you to just close down your eyes. And as you're rubbing that point, I want you to see what just comes to the surface for you. Just noticing, not bypassing, just noticing what comes to the surface for you. The smell of the frankincense is just so beautiful. And as I'm doing that for myself, what's coming to the forefront for me is, I could actually cry thinking about it, actually. It's really present with me right now, is the missing of my beautiful home that I had in Victoria. The beautiful deciduous trees. We had some incredible maple trees that were, and I'm still rubbing, the incredible maple trees that were just spectacular. I'd lay in bed and I would look at these beautiful maple trees. And when the kids were little, they would lay in the leaves like snowmen, and they would do the angel wings where you do that. They would do that, and they would often take a bag full of the leaves into kinder and into the earlier years of primary school, and they would use that as a part of their creative work at school, and they would share that with their friends. So I'm missing that at the moment. I'm grieving what we had And even though it was 2 years ago, yeah, just letting that be. Not that I even felt that that was in my body. I wasn't aware of that. But as you rub that point, it can start to activate some really old emotion that's there, and it can release it. And the beauty of releasing a layer of that, it's not to say it's not going to come up for me again, other aspects of that, but the beauty of when we release that feeling, that subconscious body emotion that we're not conscious of, is it makes room, it makes space for inspiration and new ideas, new chi to come into the body, to come into the lungs and the large intestine, the skin, the metal element. And the pain for me is actually shifted over to the right side now as I'm rubbing. And it makes space for fresh new energy to enter in. So that is a really simple way in which you are able to support yourself. I'm all about empowering people to have really simple tools to work on themselves, to support themselves, to allow themselves to be their own healers. That's my absolute passion, and that's why I'm wanting to share this with you today. So remembering lung 10 on the point. What I want to do here is I actually want to read to you a little snippet of a book that I refer to a lot about what lung 10 is about. Now, this book is really beautiful, and I refer to this all the time when I'm working with my clients. It's absolutely beautiful, and it works with all the acupuncture points and the energetics of the body. And I wanted to read to you what lung 10 is all about. So lung 10 is called fish region. The name of this energy release point is very symbolic of Piscean age, where the symbol of God is the fish. There are many references of fish in the New Testament of the Christian Bible. Master Jesus feeding the masses with fish, his followers being fishermen and transforming into fishers of men, for example. The birthing place and dwelling of fish is water, vast oceans and seas, symbolic of the water of the essence, the womb of souls. Fish metaphorically become the representation of source, which feeds us with heavenly energy. This energy is pure, fiery essence. It is a fire greater than any fire known. The alchemy is the transformational union of fire and watery depths, bringing forth a completely new form by its transformational properties. Unblocking and activating this energy release point, which is what we're doing by just rubbing that particular point. For me, I added some frankincense onto that as well, and just rubbing and activating that point. It breaks us free from stagnation, inertia, and emotional coldness by reconnecting our heart to the divine heart. We are thus inspired to find the highest within ourselves so that we may move forward with empowered self-worth, compassion, and purpose. So that's what working with that point does. It's so beautiful. And when you think about that, it helps to break us free from stagnation and inertia and to move on. So if we look at, again, with what came up with me with my old home and those beautiful old trees in our garden, rubbing that allows to release and to move on and to embrace more, and another layer of embracing our beautiful home here in Queensland in the Whitsundays. So it allows more inspiration about where I'm living and the space, and this weekend or these next few days I might spend some time in the garden and just really being present in this space rather than a thread of me in a missing and in grief. Okay, when this acupuncture point is out of balance, we may feel judgmental attitudes towards ourselves and others, low self-esteem, self-criticism, feelings of unworthiness, and hard-heartedness. So that there is just a little bit of information about one acupuncture point and how working with that point when you have grief in your heart or grief in your body, in your lungs, in your bowel, on your skin or in your skin or in your energy field, in your brain, in your mind, in your thoughts, that is just a really beautiful, gentle way that you can support yourself, particularly in the season of autumn, of metal element, to help release and bring in fresh new chi and new energy for yourself. So I hope you find that helpful. Another great way to work with the metal element, as I always say, is I have a beautiful range, elemental healing. So there's a candle, there's the vibrational essence, and there's the mist. So you could even work with the essence, placing a couple of drops over your hand. You could place, so the metal element, you could place a couple of the drops of the vibrational essence on your hand, or spray some of the spray on your hands after you're putting it through your auric field, and then using the essence or the mist and rubbing that point with that. So I do have a range available, but I also want you to know that you don't need to have the range to work on yourself and feel empowered in being able to support yourself through times of grief or sadness. Sending you so much love, and I hope you found this really beneficial. Okay, see you. Bye.